what would you like to see? Deficit? An
Yeah,
option?
we should just talk you guys through our approach to all of this, how we got to where this ended up in this. Because this document that Louis is handing you is basically a proposal, an initial step toward a supplemental budget. So here's what we did. You guys had your original budget that you adopted, and we've been operating and making decisions. These guys have been operating and making decisions based on that. But it was based on some blind assumptions because you didn't have historical numbers that were valid that you could rely on. So that's where we started catching up on the audits and getting the numbers nailed down. So in December, when we got the audits caught up, we had true numbers of where the city really was
And
at.
that's why I gave you this page, because that page is those
Yeah.
are your deficits.
Right.
That's why I gave you that page to look at.
So with the financial statements that you received for June 30th, 2012, these are the deficits that fell out of that. Those have to carry forward into the year that you're working under. So to be honest, as we were working through the audits, we knew the numbers were looking ugly. And Susie and I were looking at each other and kind of looking at Louie and saying, okay, we're doing what we need to do, and the city's doing what they need to do. The numbers are ugly. The numbers are ugly, and we're gonna have to deal with it at some point. So the numbers were finalized in December. We looked at Louie and said, here you go. Here you go, dude. This is what you have to work with. Let's see what we can do. And so.
You notice his hair's got a lot more long.
I know. And he's been doing a great job. He's not shying away from it at all. He's really taking the bull by the horns and racking his brains and trying to figure out the best way to do this. So where we started, we just started by getting our arms around it. Okay, this is what we're looking at. We got our arms all the way around it. And the first place we started was to say, let's make sure these numbers are legit. Let's see if there's anything about these numbers that we're pulling forward that can be tweaked or moved around because they weren't done correctly in the past. Let's really analyze this. So one big thing that we found was that your administrative overhead that the general fund has been recognizing over the years has not been fully reimbursed by the other funds. So to the tune of $250,000 over the past 5 years, the general fund has been taking a direct hit, somewhat contributing to that big deficit that is pulling forward. So what we did is we went back, we quantified what that deficit was, and we said, those funds really should make up to general fund what they used in their administrative expenses. So we crunched the numbers and we made an adjustment to the beginning fund balance lines on the budget to compensate for that fact. So we can go into more detail if you want, but basically what happened is we looked at the allocation rates that have been used in the past from all the funds to reimburse general fund, and we took that amount that had not been reimbursed in the past, we applied those rates and adjusted everyone's beginning fund balance accordingly. So no cash left the door, cash didn't change at all, but those balances were shifted around for that overhead allocation issue. So when you look at the financial statements that were issued in that binder, and you look at that beginning fund balance on your budget document, you're going to see some differences, and it's because of that adjustment. It's those other funds reimbursing general fund for overhead that they should have paid in the past but didn't. So that hopefully answers that question about, especially in the OIP fund, it had not been allocated over any overhead for the past 3 years. And stepping back and looking at what the administrative team does and where those administrative costs come from, it probably should have been. And so we talked through that with Louie. That was his decision to propose to you guys, is that we catch that up and make that right. So that's where we started. We also challenged, we went back and looked at the allocation rates that were used in the past and challenged that. And there were some tweaks that were needing to be made to those. Those did make a significant impact It was more the unreimbursed piece that really made a difference. So that's where we started. We pushed that through. That changed the beginning deficits. Changed them around a little bit. So the general fund initially started with about a $400,000 deficit carrying forward from the beginning of the year. And through that administrative catch-up, it was reduced down to 165.
That went back up again, right?
Well, it did, because what happened is we started looking at the deficits in the other funds and saying, okay, 911, unemployment, CARS projects, we've all got these deficits and there's nothing we can do about them. There's nothing we can do about them. So what do? Do we leave them just sitting over there to deal with later? Or do you take care of it? Do the right thing?
I think you need to face them head on because it's not gonna go away by itself. The only question I have is now that we got real numbers instead of funny numbers, like we've been dealing with in the last 5 or 6 years, how is that going to influence your ability to put together a budget that's believable?
Something that only help.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have numbers to work with, you're gonna make.
Yeah, the numbers are gonna be right. The issue at hand, I feel comfortable with the numbers that we have to build a new budget.
Okay.
I do.
That's my
But
question.
my issue, since you hit that, the issue is what do we do with a deficit? Okay.
So we did the initial step to clean up the beginning,
Right.
and then that's where Louis came in and said, okay, what else can we scrub out of this budget? So he met with Tim and met with other department heads and scrubbed his administrative budget and said, okay, we know what's happened for 7 months out of the year. What can we true up? What do we really think is gonna happen for the rest of this year? Let's work that into the supplemental budget so we have a better feel for what this year is really gonna look like, so that we can bring better information and a better supplemental budget to council. But even after all that is done, we come back to the bottom line deficits in general fund and EMS and what to do.
This isn't a one-year fix,
Well,
not unless you want to cut your.
you guys have made a heck of an improvement on the incredible hole that was left from the past several years. Through really analyzing what your numbers are and making the correct adjustments, and then by making decisions to reduce your expenditures and true up your revenues. And that's what's happened so far. But as far as what's left, it comes down to continuing to have tight management, to budget appropriately, and I don't know.
Well, I think that's
Do the
about
best you
it.
can with it,
I think we need to have
keeping your eyeball
more
on
than
it.
just an intangible plan of action, however. I think we need to have something, we're gonna do this year, we're gonna do this next year, we're gonna do whatever it takes for every year until we resolve the issue. But we need to have how we do that, and we don't know how we do that, so that's up to you guys.
Well, and
It's a great suggestion.
can I just?
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's fine. And this is where it comes into play, is, as you know, you can give loans to yourself. Okay, you take a loan from another department and pay it back, okay? But the issue at hand is if you do it now, okay, then you've got to have it all paid back next year.
That's right.
Okay. If we do it in the 13-14 budget, then we got the 13-14 and the 14-15, then you got the 2 years to work with, okay? So what we are trying to find out, we got a call into the Secretary of State's office at this point, waiting for a phone call back, is to ask them, okay, you know we've been carrying negative fund balances all this time, okay? You know it, okay? We're not asking for a blessing, we just want to know, we're telling you, we may want to carry a negative fund balance to the end of this year, okay? All right, so that it gives us 2 years to fix this, okay? And it also gives us a truer picture of where we're at, okay? And the reason for that is, if you look at your document that you have right there that I gave you, just so, if you look at that front page, just look at the front page and look under annual budget and year-to-date actual, it'll tell you what your stat, what's been going on. On the original budget, you budgeted 1,986,730. On your year-to-date revenues, you're showing 1,919,991. Okay, and am I correct? And that's with the deficit.
Mhm. Yeah, you can see the deficit.
And that's with that deficit. Okay, you're at 1,919. Okay, and if you go to page,
Wait, so we have the $400,000 deficit in here, the beginning fund balance.
right, plus
And we're
that
still-
235 goes to the positive. That's right below it, so that helps you.
Okay.
Okay, the adjustment. So yes, so even with the,
We're still doing okay.
yes, so now if you go to page 5.
That's starting to get a little disheartening.
Yeah, no, that's why it is so disheartening. That's why it is so disheartening, because we are doing the right things, okay? Now, if you look at page 5, you will see that your budget, of course, is there, and it says that you've actually spent 1,647,999. Okay, so that's telling you is that you are 293,991 to the good. Actual numbers, okay? These are real numbers. These aren't numbers bouncing all over that system. These are true, good numbers. Okay?
Backed up by the cash position.
Pardon?
Backed up by the.
And backed up by cash position, yes. So,
So that 17% of the budget
that we have, technically, that we haven't collected. Yeah, and you're at month 8, or month, what is it? You're at month 8? At month 8.
Do you think you're at a point where you could estimate what we might be able to pay off? What if, let's say we do end up in the black at the end of this year, do you have an idea of what we would be able to, I mean, not discounting that?
Well, no, I mean.
What could we pay it down to, do you think? Do you think we might have,
Well, I mean, if these numbers stay true, the way we're going, okay? And from the beginning, I've been saying that we would probably have a ending fund balance, is that correct, sir? Ending fund balance of about 300,000, which I'm seeing it, see? Okay, but, again, there is a chance that we could break even. I mean, but it's a chance. Hey, Mayor, Your Honor, Mr. Apple wanted to ask if that's okay with you.
So what?
Possible to ask a question here?
So that counts. You want to let him say something?
No, that's not. Let me just make sure I understand. By law, we have to zero out every year. And I'm sure you've got to call in Phil Hopkins, I'm sure he'll go along with the deal. But he's going to want to see, like I want to see in those citizens, do we have a plan to get ourselves out of the deficit, like she was asking? A good road plan that will pay down this debt without putting
Killing
more money on the back of me and the rest of the citizens.
That's the whole idea. Yeah, and we're gonna head there. Well, again, after we talk to the Secretary of State's office, then our next steps will come into, do we want to do a loan, do we want to pay it off?
I would really be against the loan even to ourselves. If he's willing to let us carry a deficit, that's the best way to go forward, and I think he'll probably do that.
Yeah, and if they'll let us do that, I'm good with that if they let us.
So, we have a plan to make money, or if we stay with what our collections are, which, Tim, I'm pleased, I'm surprised you're making good money. Yeah, that's a good deal. If we stay that route, will we pay ourselves off, not this year, but next year or the year after? Or we just don't know for sure?
No, I feel confident that
Okay,
it
thank
could
you.
be a couple of years, yeah.
If it continues to trend the way it's been trending,
Yeah.
I'd rather be pessimist.
and truly, you guys, it is amazing that the city is even running in the black and chipping away at this deficit versus creating more of a deficit. If you look around the country,
Yeah.
everyone is struggling and struggling. And
Well,
you guys
yeah, we
are-
didn't
are
figure
pretty
we would
close.
be in this position. We thought we were gonna be having to definitely take another loan for the next 2 or 3 years.
We just have to go 40 miles west.
Yeah.
Eugene's looked at their eyeballs and.
Yeah.
So I think we're even more pleased than. most.
Well, I mean, well, and for many, many years, Eugene has been very the citizens have been very good to their government over the years. Now, it's caught up with them and they're saying, whoa, no. So,
They just want $6
yeah. Well, 6,600,000, you know, I'm gonna be the same.
million.
So, anyway, so yes, so where we're at is, once we get an answer back from the Secretary of State's office, okay, that'll be step one as an option, and then we'll have a couple, 2, 3 options. But I wanted you to see what we had.
My recommendation would be that you use this next budget process, the one that's coming up over the next few months, to nail that down, because we're already 8 months into this year, you're truing up the budget for that right now, and here really soon, you're gonna start looking into the next year, so you're gonna have a good feel for where you're gonna land this year and what deficits are gonna carry over to the next year, and that's where you create your plan of how and when it's gonna show up.
That's up to you guys. Y'all can recognize me. I can't, that's your call to recognize it.
Oh,
Thank you. I have two short questions, I hope. One is the $325,000 secret donor money in this budget?
Yes,
Okay, because I didn't see it on our copy, and so it's revenued and expensed?
yes.
And then the other quick question is, does the ending balance at the end of this audit, which is our beginning balance for our current year, match what our funds were in cash at that time?
And
No.
answer that, Tim.
No, the fund balance that you're seeing on the budget is a fund balance, it's not a cash balance necessarily. Your cash balance could be higher or lower because of accruals. So if you owe utilities at the end of the year, that's gonna come out of your expenses, but you still have the cash because you haven't paid it yet. So there are timing differences that could create a difference between the cash balance and the fund balance.
But knowing those differences, are you able to say, we're there? Because we know that we owe this much money still, and we know that the budget says we have this.
Yeah, on the financials, there is a cash balance for each fund that you can see, and you can compare that to the fund balance to see what the difference might be. Is that answering your question? Because you're wondering about how the cash balance might relate to fund balance deficit that you're seeing. So generally
Like overall, if I know you can't on any one day be exactly accurate, but can you, by looking at all of what you know you owe and what you know you have coming in and what you know your budget is, actually say, we're pretty close, we're right in there? Or are we way out?
Generally speaking, your cash balance is going to be somewhere in the vicinity of your fund balance. So the general fund, because it has a deficit fund balance, most likely also had a deficit cash balance at the same time.
So you want to know what the ending fund balance is, I do too. Projected ending fund balance, not when we get there and say, oh, by the way, here's what we're going on. Projected, how are we going to get there?
It says, I was figuring out, we're basically at 206,000 a month, if this is for 8 months, correct? 1,647,000. So at the end of 12 years, we should be at 2 million, or at the end of 12 months, we'd be at 2,265,000. If we
Or a little
keep
more.
going the way we're going.
Yeah, or a little more, yeah, you're right.
So we're 300,000 over.
Yeah, that's for me, I like ballpark projections. because-
Yeah, I'm working on it now.
Balance is what actually is what carries you over your taxes, regardless of which profit is. Still an anticipated ending fund balance, and I don't know about this negative anticipated. That's new
It's-
to me, because that's what we used to carry us through. And we're kind of moving through the names around a little bit, but at any rate, at the end of the year, you should know what your projected balances are in each fund before you ever get there, I would think.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happens, but.
Well, we'll do projections, just basically what Les did, but with a little more analysis, but the same thing, yeah. And I've already done, and I have done some, so I've started some preliminary projections
Yeah.
on where I believe we'll be landing as far as revenues in the general fund. So I have started some projections.
In order to do a budget, a real budget, you need to know what you're going to do.
Yeah, negative.
No, not negative.
But, and you got, you're
You
carrying.
can't carry a negative.
Well, that's what we're
We
gonna
might
talk.
be trying to, if the Secretary
Yeah.
of State says we can, that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm all right with that.
Yeah, but and that's what I'm saying, well, we'll have a few options,
Yeah.
and I'm hoping that's one we have. And because if we do carry a negative fund balance with a plan on how to dispose of
Yeah,
it,
Right,
I'm good with that,
yeah.
you know.
But we're not looking at carrying a $400,000 deficit. We believe that will be paid down.
I think so,
Okay.
yeah.
That's what
Yes, I don't believe it's gonna be 360, no. No, I don't believe it'll be that much, but I believe we may have a negative fund balance of maybe 160 or so, give or take.
And we've got another couple of shots of taxes, not big shots, but there's one in February, and one this month, I can't remember.
What it may. And that's something we're gonna be watching closely. Anyway, any other questions? This is the time to
Good job.
beat everybody up.
Are we going to talk about other options for dealing with this, or?
Well, we can cover some of the options. Again, one of them is you do loans to yourself. You ask the Secretary of State's office to see if they don't have an issue with you carrying your negative fund balance. Do nothing.
Like we've always done.
Lay off more people.
And that's true.
Remove your expenditures.
Yeah. Or you lay off folks, or you shut down programs. I mean, so there's
Well,
those are the ugly ones, okay? And I know that EMS is very important, and that's why I work very hard to use those funds that I pull from here, there, and everywhere to knock down their debt, okay? Because I know that it's difficult for them to make money. When we bill $2 million and only bring in $325,000, correct me if I'm wrong,
You're right on.
okay, that's a bugbear. You know, you're not bringing in any money. The other piece is, the Medicare piece is so unpredictable at this time. However, we are good until December 31st, okay? So I made some phone calls and did some checking, so we are good on the current rates that we're getting for, till December 31st for sure. So that'll be part of the piece as we're building our budget, so. So those, Chrissy, Counselor, those pieces I just threw out, I mean, those are the uglies. Like if you ain't got cash to cover it, technically you should close it, okay?
well, I think maybe part of what Christine asked, and one of my questions is, when we're running for city council, one of our, what we said we was gonna try to do was come up with like a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, a 15-year plan, how we're gonna bring the city back in.
Control the strategic plan, that's what we're working on right now.
Oh, and touching on that, I did get an email from Ford, and it looks like they're discussing our grant, so hopefully we'll get something. And they encourage that we find a whole bunch of Ford people to be involved in our strategic process. Yes, I knew, and I told them that on my note, yes, we have a
He's not
counselor,
a
and
bunch, but he's
and we'll bring some other folks on, so that's a key, like you said from the beginning, is try to have as many Ford alumni on there, Ford Institute leadership alumni.
That's good for them too. They get to try.
And so that looks pretty good. So yes, that is on the horizon to do that. However, this fell on your lap a lot faster than we got going on our strategic plan.
Right, well,
Well, actually, you know.
And it'll be part of it.
I think that it could have been so much worse from what we were told.
Well, it was.
Well, it could have been worse. It could have been so much worse.
No, it was worse. You just had a lot, you're just doing a lot of work.
His face is like as green as his
it's that
shirt.
magical accounting.
I think we need to give you guys a little round of applause.
Yeah,
This is
really.
Okay, right here.
Don't let your hat get too big for you.
Anyway, so if you want to go through this one-on-one with me, just let me know, okay? Because I'm going to be moving fast on this, okay? Because we got to get this done quick.
When are we looking at the approval of the supplemental budget?
At the latest, because of all the LB1s, all the stuff I gotta do, the postings. It's was it 5 to 30? 5 days to 30 days for your postings, right?
Yeah.
So, it had to be the first meeting in March, right? Yeah, for me to,
Last year.
yeah, for me to be able to, the quickest will be first meeting in March. And then I'll be getting the budget calendar out for this next budget process. We started in early April. It's probably gonna be closer to like the third week of April when we start because of all this piece here. So, but I'll make sure that we schedule enough meetings, all the meetings that we need.
You mean March 1st, right?
Jack, it's so that you guys were here for all of this that's going on and kind of know probably more history into this. What do you think the city, not necessarily what should we do, but in your mind, how do you see the city getting ourselves out of this? You guys ever read about it? How do you see it?
Usually about 1 to about 3 in the morning, when I wake up for a long time.
Me too.
There's avenues you can take, but there's still some analysis that really needs to be done. And I think part of it, when you sit down with Lee and talk about some of the ideas, you gotta remember, I was gone yesterday afternoon and today, so some of the things that they talked about, I wasn't involved on, I'll get
I
caught
was
up.
thinking last year. or the year before.
I wasn't in this last year, you gotta remember.
I mean, maybe you guys are around the city, you just kind of.
She was a court reporter.
That's what I asked her about crooks. She could have
Any other questions?
At which point,
Okay.
I would like to make one interjection here, Lou.
No, go ahead.
This is important to me, part of it is because of the stuff I've done for so long, is that the analysis that was done and those adjustments that you'll see that was brought in from prior years, it's right under the deficit, those numbers, and some of those adjustments were done from that 5 year going back and bringing forth that admin back into where it should be. That documentation and the way it can be presented, the auditors probably are not going to have any problem with us doing that. Would you?
Yeah, I would still recommend running it by them before you pull the trigger on anything, but I was an auditor in a former life, so I know exactly what they're gonna ask for, and that's how we build the analysis, is to address any questions.
We don't want to get.
Maybe we could, I mean, if you gave that to me, can I muddle through it, or is it just, you know, really, I'd like to see that, okay.
Get it to me.
What was that? Yeah, I love having all the numbers.
I have a few copies of, if you would like to see them, of past audits. I have a few remaining copies of like several years back that you can have.
I sent it look at with Louis, but
Yeah.
yeah, I would like to have those.
Back recommendations.
How far back?
It's okay.
We were in the mid-90s on some stuff, on the industrial park and stuff.
Yes, some of it went way back.
Yeah, so-
That was-
So we're delving in a long ways back.
There was a lot of things that got uncovered when we were going through that process. And it's just, as you find it, you deal with it.
Okay, any other questions? If not, I'm going to, for those people who want to look at what you were looking at, I'm going to stick it in here and run those pages through for any of the audience that wants to look at these pages that you guys saw. So I'm going to do that for them. I'll take some time. Staff, I'm going to,
Done.
if we're done.
We're done, we're adjourned.
Thank you very much.
You guys are welcome to leave. I'm going to take a few.